Okay. We're happy to have Ellwood, Colahan and Bell presenting on Indigenous voices and online discography of Native American recording for the 21st century. Ellwood Colahan is music and performing arts librarian at the University of Denver. He's past chair of MPMLA and serves on committees of MPMLA, MLA, College Music Society, and Guitar Foundation of America. His work has been published in MRSQ, Soundboard Scholar, and College Music Symposium. His music degrees are in classical guitar performance and music theory. He formerly performed with the Denver-based Gamelan Tunis Nakar and is active with the Denver chapter of the American Recording Society. His research interests include classroom pedagogy, data sonification, early fretted instrumentalitures, and issues in contemporary Balinese music. He lives in Denver with his wife and 2 teenage children. Thomas Bell serves as Music and Humanities Librarian at Kansas State University and leads the Arts, Humanities, and Design team there. Before becoming a librarian, he sang professionally. He completed his MLIS at the University of Texas at Austin and MA in Music at the University of California, Santa Barbara. As a senior, he is a past fellow of the Benjamin Britten Peter Pears School for Advanced Musical Studies in Aldburg, England, and the Aspen School of Music. He has published many reviews of indie, electronic, and experimental rock music, and currently teaches the course he created, Inventing the Future, Underground Rock, 1968 to 1993, at Kansas State University. He also serves as the Mariana Kisler Beach Museum of Art Librarian of the Library.
Good afternoon. So I'm Louis Colahan, and I work at the University of Denver. My institution was founded by a man named John Evans, who, as territorial governor of Colorado in 1864, created the conditions for the notorious Sand Creek Massacre of hundreds of peaceably assembled Cheyenne and Arapaho people, mostly women and children, who were killed and mutilated by soldiers of the 3rd Colorado Cavalry. Evans fanned the flames of hostility towards Colorado's indigenous inhabitants, appointed the commander who ordered the massacre, defended it, and failed to investigate it afterward. University of Denver not only sits on stolen native land, but struggles with our founders' heritage of murder and genocide.
Bill and I work at Kansas State University. Kansas is historically the home to the Kaw, Osage, and Pawnee, among other Indian nations. Kansas is the current home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Prairie Band, Potawatomi, the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas, the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, and the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska. Kansas State is a land-grant university, or as some of my colleagues and I refer to it, a land-grab university. We also do our business on stolen land. Our government declared vast ranges of land for sale, displacing indigenous people and lots of other people who were just living their lives. I noted a display as I was leaving my library for the last time I've been on campus for a few days before coming here. And it was the many books as you walk in, and the display is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Anyway, so here we are. I want to clarify that the government did not speak for all European people who came to North America, and though there was more than enough horrible behavior and tragedy, there are also examples of cooperation, mutually beneficial commerce, and relationships between Native and Euro-American communities and populations. As Jessica Keating said, some Native groups engaged in lively trade with European traders. The fur trade with the French is just one example. And Jesuit priests, known as Black Robes, learned the Lakota language and lived with tribal communities from the late 16th century to the early 19th century. I love that image. It's such a case, just with the look. All right, so just going to say a little bit about the process and what happened. In 1786, the United States established its first Native American reservation and approached each tribe as an independent nation. This policy remained intact for more than 100 years. In 1829, 14 months after entering office, saying he would preserve this, Andrew Jackson prompted Congress to pass the Removal Act. The U.S. systematic policies of assimilation, removal, and even elimination were particularly destructive during the 60-year period between 1830 and 1890. A quick language note, there is no such thing as a generic Native American, of course. We will use, you may hear terms as we speak because I'm reading really fast. Native American, Native North American, Indigenous American, or Aboriginal. The one term Native American includes a vast variety of tribes, languages, and dialects, geography, customs, each distinct from the others. As of January 2024, there are 574 federally recognized American Indian tribes and Alaska Native entities in the U.S. What was lost, what was destroyed through this process was family structure, language, rituals, religion, attire, music, and dances. The federal government separated families, removing children from their homes and sending them to faraway boarding schools where they were forbidden to speak their native languages, engage in their religion, songs. They were even forced to give up their clothes and required to wear European-style clothing. For many others, being forced to move brought population destruction by disease, starvation, and wars. Perhaps the most, this is a map of the North America, as it was at one time. Perhaps the worst and most hollowing out loss of all of this was, to the Native American, was their loss of common experience. There's one thing to be in a foreign culture as an immigrant, it goes without saying, that to be a stranger in a culture that has invaded your own land and culture is something few, if any of us, can begin to understand or relate to. This more up-to-date map of the tribes and tribal jurisdictions. Tragedy by the numbers. I'll just let you read those. We got from 515 million to 237,000. To contextualize our project, Gummer published Guide to Native American Music Recordings in 1994, indexing 1,163 recordings. An updated second edition in 1997. Cumulative with the 94 book expanded to 1,470 entries. The third edition is radically smaller and restricted only to traditional Indigenous identity. All contemporary genres were excluded. The next year, Wright published the Encyclopedia of Native Music, more than a century of recordings from wax cylinder to the internet, or an encyclopedia of artists and recordings. This work is useful as a reference on Native American artists, but not primarily a discography. North American Indian Music, a guide to published sources and selected recordings, published in 1997 by Keeling, is too limited in coverage, 73 recordings as a discographic source. Our Envision project has few precedents outside Gombert's books of 94 and 97, which are now 25 plus years out of date. The other mentioned works are both dated and even more limited in scope, convincing us that a new updated discography of Native American recorded music is worthwhile.
So our project is a discography, and we want to frame it in terms of resistance to cultural annihilation. It's intended to be non-cumulative with previously published discographies of Native American music, notably with Gombert's Native American Music Directory of 1997. As far as genres and styles are concerned, our project aims to include all types of Native American music. As Thomas already noted, Gombert's 2004 work was radically scaled back. And, okay, I wasn't paying attention. Is mostly limited to genres connected to traditional Indigenous culture and identity. We're committed to representing Indigenous musical expression in all of its forms, from traditional tribal songs to contemporary Indigenous genres such as powwow songs, Native American gospel, to contributions by Indigenous artists, to wider contemporary genres like hip hop, metal, and EDM. And this slide shows the Canadian group Hallucination, formerly known as A Tribe Called Red, who are famous for blending electronic music with Indigenous chanting and drumming. They're shown here in a performance in Vancouver. For now, our effort focuses on recordings by North American artists from the United States, Canada, and New Mexico. This does not reflect any intention to limit our scope, but only reflects what has been most conveniently available to us to index. Collaboration with international partners throughout the Americas is a future goal, and ideally we hope to eventually represent all New World Indigenous artists. Our discography aims to cover all artists that identify as Indigenous, so we emphasize that we're not in the business of judging who is Indigenous or whose claims to Indigenous identity are valid. This is a sometimes contested area, and such claims can be and have occasionally been controversial. We rely, where possible, on third-party arbiters of indigeneity, such as specialist record labels, Native American Music Awards, or NAMMYs, and the Canadian Juno Awards. Even these, however, are not infallible. The case of Buffy St. Marie is an instructive example. St. Marie was, she claimed to have been born in Saskatchewan, Canada, to Cree parents on the reservation, and throughout her career marketed herself as an Indigenous artist, winning a Juno Award in 2018, writing and performing many songs on Indigenous themes, and engaging in activism to support Native American issues. However, last year, a CBC investigation concluded that St. Marie was actually born in Stoneham, Massachusetts, to white parents of mixed Italian and English descent. We haven't indexed St. Marie's post-97 recordings, mostly because we haven't gotten around to them yet. But we have yet to really confront the question of whether an artist's self-identification as Indigenous is enough to be included in our discography if that identification is disputed. The scope of the discography also includes all recordings that are commercially available or are known to have been commercially available, on the logic that this means they may be available in a library or a collection somewhere. Unlike Wright McLeod's Encyclopedia of Native Music, we will not include recordings that were produced for broadcast and never released to the public, since such listings would have no practical value. We're also careful not to list recordings, even commercially available recordings, get my thought here, even commercially available recordings, if they were released without the proper informed consent of the communities to which they belong. This includes recordings made under conditions of fraud, duress, or deception. For instance, in the MLA-TLA 2023 plenary session, Restorative Justice, the Decolonization of Indigenous Performing Arts Archives, Judith Gray of the Library of Congress described the activities of Paul Radin, an early 20th century researcher. Radin wished to collect medicine bundle songs from the Ho-Chunk people of southern Wisconsin, but the Ho-Chunk held these songs sacred and refused to perform them for him. Radin then learned of a community of Ho-Chunk who had emigrated to Nebraska and exchanged their traditional beliefs for those of the Native American Peyote Church. He recruited from this group, and later brought them to Sioux City, Iowa, secretly collected the songs he wanted there, and later deposited the recordings in the Library of Congress. In the same plenary, Trevor Reed of the Hopi Nation told the story of Laura Bolton, who recorded songs on Hopi tribal lands and later released an album on the Folkways label entitled Indian Music of the Southwest, which included a restricted ceremonial song not intended to be heard by outsiders. This recording can still be streamed on Spotify today. Recordings like these violate the norms of communities who hold some cultural expression sacred and equally violate the spirit of respect for Indigenous culture that informs our project. We are made aware that any such recordings have found their way into our index. We'll remove them. And, as an aside, I'll offer that I recently identified Bolton's recording of Hopi songs in the University of Denver collection and have removed it therefrom. Our discography is designed to be a continuously updatable web resource. Unlike Gombert's work, and unlike all print indexes, which begin to go out of date the day they are published, ours is a living document designed to grow and evolve over time. This allows us to continually add new material and also facilitates the correction of errors of description or musical genre that may be inevitable as we work with the repertoire in which we are cultural outsiders. The technical structure of the project is simple. Entries are added to an online master spreadsheet. When we're ready to post an update, we download the spreadsheet and process it with database software that outputs a sorted report. Sorry, lost my place. Outputs a sorted report. The report template includes HTML tags, and the content of the completed report is saved as an HTML file and uploaded to a web server. The entire update process takes a maximum of about 10 minutes. A beta version of the index is live online now. It's hosted by the Humanities Commons core repository. This is an adequate technical solution for the moment and may continue to be so moving forward. If Humanities Commons becomes impractical for any reason, a future option we've contemplated is for it to be hosted by MLA as part of its open access publishing initiative. The project also has a social structure different from traditional indexes. Our emphasis is on collaborative development, and our intention is to involve as many collaborators as possible. The model comprises a contributor group, an editorial group, and an advisory group. The contributor group adds entries to the master spreadsheet. The editorial group checks for duplication and data consistency and publishes updates. The advisor group lends cultural and technical expertise, advising us on correct terminology for Indigenous nations, for example, or helping us to establish controlled vocabularies for consistent description. We're seeking collaborators first within NPMLA. We believe this project is appropriate in content and scope for collaboration within this chapter. In the future, we envision recruiting collaborators more widely within MLA. Another potential source of collaborators is ATALM, the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums.
One of the advisors, which I'm going to mention this a little later, but one of our advisors on this project is George Gottschalk, colleague at Kansas State, who has served as the president of the Native American Library Association. In fact, he will be traveling to ATLM later this year. And so we have some really fine people that we think a lot of who are helping us. How we hope this will be used. Your librarians, so you already know, collections building, discovery of current North American Indigenous music. It didn't stop in 1997 at the in Gombert's book. In fact, it is kind of exploding, scholarship and teaching. Why is it important? Why should you care? Enriching understanding of North America and all of its people in history. Our values are preserving culture and history, restorative justice, improving health, expansive history, not just the good parts that we like, our relationship to the environment, traditional medicine, etc. Expanding styles, as I mentioned, things happening now go way beyond tribal music and Native American sounds are influencing all kinds of young musicians who are of Native American heritage. Our learning curves will be ongoing, communicating thoughtfully. Our advisors and our other advisors, like George is at Haskell Indian Nations University, a librarian there, and metadata, we have Margaret Corby, who is signed on, and then finding the recordings. Where's the stuff? I'm going to skip this quote because we're out of time.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to briefly walk through how the discography is produced. This slide shows data in our master spreadsheet. You can note that WorldCat URL in the field on the right, which is highlighted in blue. This image shows the spreadsheet imported into LibreOffice Base. LibreOffice Base is a database software analogous to Microsoft Access, but unlike Access, open source, cross-platform, and free to download and use. This image shows the detail of the report template in Base. You can see the genre, nation, and artist headers in blue on the left. And if you look carefully, you can see HTML tags that are positioned to wrap around the database output. This image shows the detail of the completed data report with the same genre, nation, and artist headers visible. This image shows the same section of report text, including the HTML tags, combined with the database output, captured and pasted into a code editor. And this image shows the uploaded file view in a web browser. Now here, see a live view of the index beta version. This is the Humanities Commons page. And this is the index. You can see that the entries are sorted first by genre, then by nation, then by artist, and lastly by date. You can also see that each entry is formatted as a link, and clicking on this link takes us to a page in WorldCat for that. Okay, now let's see. Takes us to a page in WorldCat for that recording, which of course identifies holding institutions and can be used to facilitate an interlibrary loan request. So, this is where it likes to hang. So, the beta version you just saw has 123 entries. Our immediate objective is to create a group of at least 10 collaborators, each of whom will input at least 100 entries. At that point, we will have 1,000 entries, and we'll be able to say that our project is a significant resource for the discovery of Indigenous music. We hope that it will become easier to recruit collaborators as the project grows in size and significance. That concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have, and we hope that some people here today will be interested in collaborating with us on the development of the project, and here's our hope. Yes, Elliot.
Twofold question. The first one is, how do you plan, since this is specifically North American constructs, how do you plan to deal with situations of different nations who are kind of across the border, particularly between the US and Mexico, where sometimes that area
Well,
is...
Mexico, we have Mexican artists in here. Mexico is part of North America.
Okay.
So far we have North America, Mexico, and Canada. And you're right that indigenous nations exist across nation-state borders.
Yeah.
So, right. That's just, that's a case-by-case thing. We're not ruling out any other parts of the Americas. It's just where we've chosen to focus.
And then my second point is, how do you come across specifically Indigenous identifying artists? How do you deal with the fact that mixed artists as colonization is different in regions where sometimes forced assimilation in ways of mixing the population and there are mixed artists? How do we kind of go into that and approach that without going into a quantum sort of colonizing mindset?
Well, we focus on self-identification as Indigenous, and as I said, we lean on third parties such as the NAMI Awards or Juno Awards or certain specialist record labels to make those judgments for us. We haven't tried to deal with any difficult cases yet, but we want to be as inclusive as possible. And
Will you be making a call for collaborators?
we are making a call for collaborators today.
Okay.
And certainly we will be making our calls.
I volunteer.
Okay. Janet's in, Maria's in.
So I just, side note, I was in Alaska visiting my brother.
Mhm.
He lives in Anchorage, and we went to a museum there, and they had a giant exhibit of Indigenous artists and music. I believe I took pictures. I don't know if I sent them to you already, but remind me about that if I didn't.
Okay.
But I wonder if museums might be a way to, you know, because it was Alaska history museum.
Okay.
They had tons of Indigenous artwork and.
There are some cultural organizations, there are some cultural institutions that have significant collections of recordings, and we want those people to be a resource to draw on.
Yeah, I'll try to get info to you.
Okay. Laura, are you in?
Sure, you asked me this before.
You did, and you said maybe.
I just said I'll be free.
That would be so cool if we could have this meeting sometime at the University of Kansas, not my place, K-State, although we will hosting. But because Haskell Indian Nations University hosts many Indian nations from all over the country, and they and the performances that are just beautiful. I would love for us to somehow connect with them. But one of our advisors is
Well, how did you guys decide to start this project?
Well,
we were having a cocktail.
at the bar, like all good ideas. So I spoke at the beginning about DU's heritage with John Adams. And so as music librarian at DU for some years, I've been working on trying to build the best collection of recordings of Indigenous artists that I can as a way of trying to respond to that heritage in a positive way. And I'll also say that different parts of DU are trying to respond to that heritage. University Libraries Division more broadly has been looking at ways to diversify voices within our collection, make it more representative. So in the process of collecting Native American recordings, I discovered Gombert's work and discovered that there is really nothing up to date. And I thought that there should be something. And I was talking to Thomas, and we agreed to work together on this and to bring it to the chapter because we thought the chapter would be a really good sort of environment to nurture this kind of work because of where we are and who we are.
And perhaps just something uniquely appropriate for our territories that we live on.
I haven't had a chance to look in depth at the Basic Music Library series. Is there a section in that?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
But again, if there is, it probably includes a lot of stuff pre-97. So we'll be focusing, certainly for now, on things post-97 that haven't already been indexed and published in Discography.
All right, we need to stop.
Okay, thank you very much for being